Thank you. And so what does that mean? How to be a vulnerable, tender-hearted, not caught in the image or the idea or the self badass.
Because what do you think of when we said we were smokers? People were like, oh.
Right?
Really?
Ideas about
Your idea of what
Yeah.
it means.
who they are, what they're supposed to be, what one's life holds. And in fact, what I kept saying to Greg, somewhat jokingly, but not completely, which is there are things I couldn't know, right? And the beauty of the vulnerability then is that we willingly don't know, isn't it? That's the point of the real badass, is that we willingly, with humility, and Pete and I just looked at a little piece that Pete, you had sent me about vulnerability and humility. And we talk about this a lot, and I think it's hard to do, which is willingly not know, willingly be open to being, well, we like the words then, don't we? Amazed or awestruck. We love that idea. Yeah, right? Get all excited. But what about the vulnerability of willingly being terrified? Willingly being completely confused, willingly not knowing, and being willing then to risk the inquiry of that. Like, I don't really know what the right thing, I don't know, right? And that Bardo moment, we've been working on this continuously in the book, haven't we? The places that scare you. And Pema wrote a whole chapter in that last chapter then on the in-between states, between shores, right? The Buddha says, and never really having solid ground, right? Not really. And yet, to think about how much we work to establish it, rather than the really better practice, and it's a practice, right? Of opening and not knowing and willingly, for me, just saying, I think I got it wrong. I don't think I understood. I don't think I was as present to you or your pain or your experience as I want to be. And how often we don't do it, do we? Really? And then, of course, we get into professions, professional, right? Scarier, because then you're encouraged really desperately, wrongly, to look like you know, aren't you? And you can't look like you don't know. And of course, it costs everyone then, doesn't it? This lack of willingness to be open, vulnerable, not know, and then even worse, wrong. And I'm careful about the word because it's a little polarized, but you get this idea, like not doing it in a way that another could hear you, see you, know your genuine care. And I think that comes consistently from a lack of vulnerability. I do. I think if we're willing to say, I honestly don't know, I'm here and open, I need to hear from you, the other maybe, or maybe oneself even then, right? I'm not sure, that. And that openness is where, for me, all growth, all teaching, all connection even comes, right? It's from that place, not the my right to, I know this, this is my experience and it is right. It's really from this whole other territory. And then what's the practice towards that? Well, the meditation practice is now perfect because you can't know. There's no way to prepare. There's no, if I could just do this, then the next one gets better or easier. Or, and many people abandon practice, don't they? Many, because it doesn't give you ground. It does not. It just keeps showing you the groundless, right? You don't know this and you haven't figured, and there I am in my own fear or my own confusion. And so it really takes something, I think. And I'll say like some kind of bravery or courage to put one's idea of oneself down, doesn't it? It takes really a lot, like not to be anything at all, not to be courageous, not to be strong, not to be competent, not to be skillful, not to be mindful. I don't know. I guess we could go there. Right? But the willingness to say, where yet have I not opened?
But even the opposite too, like the, the negative sides of that, the not good enough or the not smart enough. Or
That's exactly right.
enough, or the, putting that
I love that, Cindy. And Cindy just said right where I was heading. Thank you. Is there's not only one way to do that. It isn't only in knowing, confidence, arrogance, pride. We do exactly the same self-making, going the other way, don't we? The same unwillingness to be vulnerable. I don't know. I can't. I'm not the one to say. I can't understand this. This is the same ground seeking self. I'm just making a negative image of the self, but I'm still making one. This is the same lack of real willingness to enter into the groundless, then, isn't it? The open space, the not knowing anything, not having to think I'm great and not believing I'm shit either.
Confuses the ego.
It confuses the ego. Where to land? Where do I construct me if I don't have a base? And often we graft on these bases in a way that I think we all have to be really careful. I think it's insidious, easy. And so then as we were sitting here, I was jokingly and not so jokingly saying, I can hardly picture that, Greg, in you. It's not actually quite true because I know some other things about Greg. But right, by appearance, you look like, well, you're a person who's right. And we also have to be careful about wearing that as spiritual practitioners, don't we? Like I've kind of got it going on. Like really careful. I'm enlightened. I don't know who says that. It'd be desperate and scary if they did. I don't know them, thankfully. Right. But watch this tendency, even with our practice then, to construct something. And I know for me as an early practitioner, I had a lot of habits for believing if only everybody would practice too, then they could be mindful like me. No, I didn't quite think it like that, but too close to that, right? And so can we abandon all hope, Pema says, for a better self? Don't you love that? Abandon all hope for a better self. And really then with honesty, right, with humility, with compassion, drop into whatever is really right here. And then nothing's a surprise because, well, we know it all. We know the adventurous side and the, right? I'm going to sneak that side and the, I'm going to always tell the truth here side and the, right? We know all the facets of our ourselves. And so I thought we would practice with that a little bit today, because I think if we can honor and open to our vulnerability, which is what the Tonglen practice is. And the Tonglen practice puts us right at the edge, right? Right where we probably didn't really want. Breathing in and opening to the parts we would rather have not had or wished were different, or and as Richard Schwartz, who does the internal family systems work, says, there are no bad parts. There are just parts. And we're the ones that construct. This is the good one. This is the bad one. And maybe we could just all let them be. Let's see if we can make some kind of contact with that this morning. It's wonderful to see you all. Thank you for being here. Yep. So here we are together. I'm going to take one more sip. Yeah.
Giving link, and it says, Donna Parman in action, the antidote to the greed we get caught up in.
The antidote to the greedy self. Yes, the one that grasps to something. And we all have our favorite thing. We all have our favorite thing. And usually, by the way, the grasping isn't money or fame in this everyday life. It's feeling seen or heard or understood, right? These tend to be where we go. If you could only see who I really am, then, and I think it's closer to, if you could only be who you really are, this would go a long way. This would go, there'd be a lot less conflict and struggle if you could say, right, I'm sure I have gotten this one. So let's sit together. And as Cindy said, also remembering our wholeness, our goodness, so that we don't fall into the identity as the failed one, the weak one, the pathetic one, the wounded one, the warrior one, the knowing one. Remember all facets, no one part greater or worse than another. And so we sit. And just taking some breaths, finding your way towards the body. And the way I like to begin the meditations these days for myself is to have to do nothing. Just the stillness itself, let it permeate. We have a tendency to begin the self-structuring even right here with a way to look, or a way to sit, or a bell to ring, or, and are these beautiful? Of course. And are they required? Of course not. So said the Buddha himself, be watchful of the habits, even in the ceremony. Watchful of the habits of self-making. And so for just a few breaths, feel towards the body and see if you can actually feel the body. We tend to construct a body, but see where you can feel its aliveness just as you sit here. And see if we can simply allow the sensations to be as they are, rather than so quickly and habitually moving into liking or not liking. the ideas of good and bad. Can we simply open to body and body sensations, however they are? Cool, warm, soft, hard. Things we're familiar with, things that are completely unexpected. I just opened my jaw a little, had a bunch of gurgly things happen there. So that's interesting. What's that? And can I just let it be? And then can I invite the attitudes, the intentions to be with myself as openly, as lovingly, as compassionately, as caringly, as patiently, as non-judgmentally. Put the words in that are most meaningful for you. Greeting ourselves just here in the body. As we are. And then for a moment, if you would, just calling to mind those others, loved ones, those in need, just like me, who have a cough in the middle of a sentence too. And we know this algorithm well, which is to the extent that I can allow, open, accept this very thing arising in me, with humility and grace. The truth is, I can open to that in others. But we begin like this, always with ourselves in our own body. And begin to narrow the attention just a little bit to the sense of the breathscape and feeling what's most alive and present there. All my attention is currently in my throat. And so can I acknowledge that something's happening there and then still open and include the experience here in the breathscape? We soften the face and release the shoulders. We let the arms and the hands relax. And with each breath, then, we soften. This is that turning breath by breath, really, towards our humanness. This soft belly, this tender heart. And as we breathe in, see if you can feel that queasy tenderness. The human vulnerability that is shared with all beings, however good you look. However together it appears, be careful. And then can we actually sit without needing to project or be or image up or self-make anything at all? And I want you to feel the liberation for that in whichever millisecond of a breath you catch that. Just letting the body, mind, being be. Without having to be anything. And that means we've just put down about 100,000 pounds of self-making mind. I get to put down this idea that I know something, that I've got to look or project anything, that there's a certain way to breathe or think or not think. Let it go. And what does that feel like? What's the quality of that breath and that mind? And as I was practicing with this yesterday, what I noticed was there was no point to the distraction any longer. We're not meditating to get anywhere at all, not to be some other way, no hope for a better self. And it's really right here that the Bodhicitta heart is ignited. This all embracing, boundless, infinite and vast heart that opens and includes everything. My scratchy throat, my runny nose, my itchy eye. It's all fine. There's nothing to run from because there's nothing to create. There's nothing to make. Just sensations and thoughts and sounds. And then I'd like you to bring some attention directly to the heart space within that breathscape. And see what you notice there and feel the effects. Is there any gripping or clinging or, yeah, but is there some kind of release, relief, or maybe a numbness, maybe a tenderness, maybe like nothing? I can't even tell. And can we breathe into that, whatever's there, and simply let it also be? Letting the body be as it is. And now we're just going to let the heart space be as it is, the heart mind. Nothing to improve because nothing is fixed or solid or permanent or mine. With each out breath, the truth is it all falls away. And can we rest then in the very dissolution and then opening completely to what arises with the next breath? Open-hearted, compassionate, caring, interested, curious. What is constructed then? Just this one breath. And it is frequently an image, a construct, a concept, maybe even a learning of what we think we should be. And it's useful to know what we graft on. I'm going to be kind or skillful, loving, whatever ideas we have. Can we open wider, bigger, beyond the idea to see just in fact what's actually here? The love that is actually here. The openness that's arising now. The tenderness that's available this breath. No constructs, no names, no ideas required. In fact, they get in the way. So then with each breath, we arrive with that open curiosity, that humility, that not knowing. And we don't fixate on that either, because that's literally one breath alive. With the out breath, we let it go. And continue to breathe into the heart space. And then I'd like you to find a sticky, a stuck, a hooked, a gripped, tight spot. And I like to use the body for this rather than the mind. And I had just a very funny felt sense of a little tiny hole at the very bottom of my heart that's leaking. Or bleeding, oozing, who knows. And let's say that that sensation represents one of the things you hide about yourself. One of those things we sometimes name bad parts. Right? See what that is. See what it has to tell you. What is it that's all the way at the bottom for me? Little drips. It's pretty well hidden. I probably, as most of us have disconnected from this often, don't attend much. It stays pretty undercover. And I just want to invite and include, allow, and open to whatever that is. And I don't have to analyze that. That's not the work here. I just want to open to it. Something I've hidden, I don't make contact with. My own bleeding, breaking heart, maybe. And we're not looking for knowing as much as we are looking for experiencing and staying. And as we stay in contact with that particular tenderness, that heart, we just open with that acceptance, that regard, to see what else it might have to tell you. And you'll have thoughts and images, possibly, maybe answers are appearing and disappearing, and you're just letting all that happen. But staying in primary connect to the sensation in this heart space itself. And the sensation will change and morph and disappear and reappear. And that's exactly the reality. Nothing solid, nothing fixed. Just seeing how it is right now. And then the Tong Len practice is actually to take that very spot, that very portal, that very tenderness, that very tightness, whatever's there, and to use it as a portal to get bigger, to grow the heart space. And so we're going to breathe right in through, for me, that very pinhold point at the bottom of my heart. Breathing in. And as I'm breathing in not only through the nose, not only through the cells, not only through that little pinhold point in my heart, into the whole body, mind, being. I'm breathing in the reality that this is a point of suffering, confusion, fear, pain, whatever's there, whatever that hidden part, that perceived bad part might be. And I'm going to feel for myself in the need to hide that truth. And rather than hide it, I'm going to place this kind attention and care upon it. And continue to breathe in that opening, that allowing, that letting be. I breathe it in, I make contact with whatever sensations or experiences there or not there. And then I just soften on the out breath, seeing if I can't make myself even just a little more available. And there's nothing to do, there's nothing to fix. Once again, you're not trying to get rid of or make anything happen at all. We're just staying in the breath, breathing into this point or portal in the heart, and feeling for oneself. with all the hiding, all the covering, all the imaging, all the trying to be some other way. And can I offer myself to myself? Can I offer whatever care, whatever acceptance, whatever wisdom, whatever compassion is needed as I make contact with this hidden or broken off or closed off part? We can offer the phrases, may I be happy. May I be free from affliction. May I have ease and acceptance and allowing for all that arises and all that passes. And I rest in stillness, in silence, and create infinite, boundless open space. To include everything. And I open to the truth of my own humanness, the truth of my own vulnerability and suffering. And I feel for myself exactly as I am. No need to fix, no need to make some other way. The way we get bigger and more boundless is to grow the Bodhicitta heart to include then all those others, just like me, who know this little pinhole at the bottom of the heart, who know this ache, this sensation, this fear, this pain, this grief. And may I breathe in, not only now for myself, but for them. They are me and I am them. And as I breathe out, may I then send out that compassion, that understanding, that prajna paramita, the deep wisdom that comes from knowing this too. Can I send out healing light, warmth, good medicine, maybe a warm, glowing light, whatever that is for you. And you may have some ancillary experience. Sometimes there's a guarding or protection that comes up. So instead of making contact with that sensation around the portal in the heart, you might notice achy back comes up, or a tight belly, or a gripping throat or chest. You can also then shift your attention there. Breathing right into the back of my shoulders and feeling for myself and all those who guard against this pain, this vulnerability, this truth. And breathing in then for us all. If that's available. And as best you can, at least breathing in for yourself. Who guards against the truth of human suffering like this. And then offering the phrases once again for us all. May we all be happy. All those who know this humanness and this suffering. May we all be free from affliction, internal and external. While we continue to breathe in, making this offer to ourselves, may we have ease and well-being. And as we breathe out, seeing if we can send it out. All those just like me who know this queasy, pinpoint, gripping suffering too. And may we all rest in the wide open arms of the compassionate and equanimous heart. Free from ignorance, free from judgment. Free from having to be any other way. And with intention, staying in the breath, breathing into that ever expanding heart with all of its parts. Some we like and some we don't. And sending out those blessings. Throughout your whole mind body until you become so full, so immersed, so complete that it simply moves out beyond the heart space, beyond the body, beyond the mind, and to touch everything. May we be filled with loving kindness and may we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. And may we all be happy. And so long as time and space endures, and as long as there are beings who exist, may I so too remain. To dispel the suffering of this world. And may this practice, this very day, contribute So then we remember that to care for anyone else, um, compassionately, kindly, means we have to make contact with our own vulnerability, don't we? And our own humanness. And we all like the short course. Don't we? Me too. Where I just like to get it out there. Just get it out there. And I think it can be a mistake. Because often we cannot bear ourselves. Not really. And so, like, if I could only fix that, then it could all be okay. And it isn't that I don't think we can't contribute to others' ease and happiness and well-being, but I don't think we can do it before we make contact with our own. And when I say our own, I mean our own unhappiness, our own not compassionate selves, our own not so joyous beings. And we point to the good news beautifully, rightly, that the compassion that we do have, that love that already is here, and it is right, as well as, I think, also, well, not me, throughout time, we know we also have to point where we notice that it isn't. And we begin that with ourselves, really. It's very easy to go, but I'm not kind to them, or I didn't. And I think that's only because we have cut that part of ourselves off. That unskillful or angry or confused or just don't give a shit self. And then the other, whoever we make them, can easily become the enemy. Right? Too easily become the enemy. When in fact, human, fearful, tender, just like me. Whatever else they're looking like. And boy, we can look, we can wear our infinite disguises. We can appear particularly not skillful at times. So I'm going to stop and just see what, again, your experience of this truth is, these truths that we know, and how can we support each other by that knowing? Your knowing about this is a part of the facet of the diamond. That's why we need to share it, which is, this is what I know. I couldn't make contact with any good news there. The whole time it just felt like crap. This is just a part of a truth. Right? This is just a part of the truth. So yeah, have a good day. Yes. So what do y'all have to say about this?
It seems like the opening a lot of times is experienced as fear. And
Say more about that, Greg. What do you know about that?
well, it is that shaky tenderness that we talk about. So that the shaky tenderness feels like some kind of a fear of opening up completely to what's actually happening. And somehow my mind wants to sort of pave it over with something. It's
Yeah.
even, I can't even
A
really
strategy.
describe it.
It's probably a
maybe.
strategy. Yeah.
Um,
A belief,
yeah,
right? If only something.
I'm not good enough. Let's put that. in
Yeah.
there. I'm
Yeah.
not good enough.
That belief thought.
And I for years and years, always felt that I was stupid. I wasn't smart enough. And so there's kind of this, that's the opposite side of that is I can't be wrong. I've got to be right. And so if you experience being wrong, then there's something wrong with me.
The buy-in to that belief thought. That's
I-
self-making.
Yeah. I
And
don't
what-
feel that so much anymore. I think
No.
it's a lot of that has gone away, and I've let go of that. And you talked about professionalism. So as a professional, I had to be right all. consultant. It just added to the difficulty. Didn't make it easy.
No, not easy for you or anybody else,
Right.
right?
But getting back to the opening, I think it is. I think I feel that, and I think maybe if we don't feel that fear, maybe there's something that is an important aspect of it. Feel that. The fear of the unknown.
The groundlessness of it
Groundlessness.
all, of it all, really everything,
Well, I had that-
completely.
I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, I had that meditation where I felt like I was just falling, and like it just got steeper and steeper, and it was darker and darker. And that was a very, very meaningful meditation. I still go back to it. Sort of feel like, what does it feel like? It's just be sort of falling into nothing. What does it feel like? There was this fear of the unknown, and but a reality of it, that it was, this is really what it is, except we're constantly just falling into nothing. We don't know anything. But you accepted it? A part of me accepted it, and a part of me was not. No, a part of me was trying to pave it over with knowing something about, oh, no, wait a minute, I'm gonna be okay or something. And you and I talked about this thing of coming back to compassion for self and how important that is this week. And it's just, and I really thought about that a lot more. And we've talked about it so much, but this week it really kind of hit me in a different way. Just how important
It's the door to
To be there
every
for self.
other opening.
Yeah.
It is the doorway to every other opening. Because then it's platitude or cliche or the right thing, or if you don't know something about that tenderness or that queasiness or that rage or that wanting to look good or that wanting to be smart enough, or I don't care what you're going to call it, that wanting to be kicked back about everything, I don't care what it is. If you don't know something about that really deeply and what that's really about, how do you open to anything else? Then the others all just look like idiots, but they're doing exactly the same thing like we all are.
Right.
Just trying to look okay. Just trying to be all right.
spreading your life upon the stage.
Literally every breath.
Right.
And there's a lot of controversy right now, interestingly, about this idea of self-compassion versus other. There is no such thing, first of all, right? So that's a little ridiculous, because it's a ridiculous proposition, because everything in me I can open to, I can certainly open to more in others. That's just the way it is. It's true, because I see something, I know something. I know that it comes from that little pinhole point or that widely torn open wound, right? Whatever its manifestation on that day. And there was a great debate in Kristen Neff conference because she said this. She said, without compassion for oneself, everything else is grafted on. And the audience went crazy over that, saying, no, you can feel for another. And she said, well, I didn't say you can't feel for another, but what's feeling it? Actually, what's feeling it? Only the thing in you that already knows it too. Otherwise, you couldn't spot it, you couldn't know it, and you certainly couldn't feel for it. Right? So it is already has to be yours, because that's your map for going, I can feel that for someone, or not feel it as well. Right? Not feel it because I've kept it separate from myself. for so long. I don't think Pete's still on, but I think he had to sign off. I don't think he's here. Pete and I talked about this a lot last at the beginning, and I think Pete and I figured out that Pete's been in the Sangha for over 10 years, which just makes me feel really old. Like, what? That's that's a long time. I think it's longer, actually. But we talked about this willingness to be vulnerable, and in all the ways we are. And I was sharing how I hadn't sent, this is just one of my examples of getting it completely wrong. I hadn't sent my college roommate a card when her father died, a man I loved. And I didn't send it, and I kept thinking about sending it, and I still didn't send it. And then I eventually, when I think it's stupid to send it now, and it wasn't really, and I felt bad about it because I knew they should do something, right? And we'd certainly talked about it, of course, but I wanted to do more. And I just couldn't get myself there. And I forgot. So I condemned myself for probably 25 years over not sending the card, never once thinking how painful that must have been to me, how scared it must have made me, how tender it must have made me that I couldn't even get the card in the mailbox. That was true. But 25 years, I should have done that. I should have done that. I don't know why I didn't do that, because I have a stamp and I probably have a card, right? What really? And a long time for me to get to, of course, because it broke my heart, because I was torched by it as well. Not because I was a jerk, not because I didn't care, and not because I don't love my roommate. It was all true. And I was brokenhearted. 25 years that took to go, wait a minute, what could have possibly been in the way? And can we offer ourselves that, really? Right? Instead of just condemning myself or the other, to recognize that there's always a vulnerability in our unskillfulness, right? There's always a tenderness under the anger or the rage or and we all love this idea. If I could just get rid of that, right? But it isn't the way. And it won't work to go, if I could just be kinder, if I could just be less angry, if I could just be less critical, then this would all be okay. Well, not really. If I could just be more self-compassionate, if I could just see what it really was, which is just a callus on some wound. And we're not partial to that opening. Because then it means what? I'm going to have to allow that to hurt. There's no way out of it now. I'm going to have to allow it to break, to be pained. And we don't really like the idea at all, do we? Dennis just wrote here, I don't know if it was just, to go into the unknown is to be in a boundless place. Yes, in theory, and it might absolutely ultimately be true and is, and it certainly doesn't feel very, very boundless to begin, does it? It feels tight and hot and hard and closed off. Can we go anyway?
And we have to open it.
Yes.
That's the whole thing.
There it is.
As soon as we push away on that, it's gone.
That's right. And then there's no boundless. See, the boundless is right there. Hard, hot, not feeling so good, a little nauseous, turned upside down. bleeding all over, shitting in your pants. I mean, whatever it is, right? That's what it really looks like.
Is your boundless, is that synonymous with the groundless? that you
Yes.
refer to?
But it's terrifying to begin.
But when he describes the boy, the falling.
Yeah.
The way I was interpreting this discussion is we all need to dive off and experience what you said was the fear, and then
Yeah.
tie into the compassion
That's right.
and be human.
That's right. And, you know, if I was really going to give us a practice, I'd tie you all up and make you all jump off my deck. Right? And just hang there. Right? And just hang there. And then we could have that conversation about how boundless it all is. And it's true. It's true. Not first, folks, not first. Don't think you got it wrong, because you're only screaming most of the time. Most of the time. And yes, ultimately boundless is correct, but it's a beautiful philosophy that makes me mad when I hear too many people say, oh, but open to the light. Really? And it's true. It's not wrong. It's true, but not before you're going to scream a long time before you get to that. And you're ever opening into that, by the way. Ah! Right? And now this thing called my own aging, illness, and death. Well, everybody else's was a piece of cake by comparison. Right? And that we can let that my little pinhole point be my whole heart. Really, right? It's not a little pinhole, it's my whole heart. Screaming, crying, bleeding, and it's all okay. Can I honor my own vulnerability like this?
Would you say it's like the sort of two sides of the same coin?
It is. Absolutely. There is no polarity in this at all. This is the non-dual teaching. Now, again, we tend to go, and so just fling yourself off the cliff, it's all fine. It's a lot easier to say. It's a lot easier to say. And yes, it's true. Everything is boundless. It's true. And really, when you fling yourself off the cliff, that's not your first thought. That is not your first thought. Your first thought is, give me something to grab. Anything, including you. Including you. Because I'll climb right over you. And wouldn't and won't we? And again, we have to be unapologetic in the brain stems, like whatever it takes to be okay. And that's every moment of anger, every moment of greed is us grabbing something, isn't it? Grabbing for ground, grabbing for right, grabbing for true, grabbing for it shouldn't be that way, or you shouldn't be that way, or and in fact, this really is a big forgetting.
I guess I'm wondering, when I think of it, I grab onto the self-compassion. I feel from
It's a,
situation
yeah,
to go back to who I am as
Yeah.
a soul.
yes,
Is that still like spiritual bypassing?
still grabbing. No, I don't think so. I think it's grabbing and so Renee said, could even turning towards self-compassion be spiritual bypassing or grabbing? Well, the answer is yes and no. And what's the yes? If I'm trying to just get out of suffering, now it's just another strategy.
That is the ego. Actually
Yeah.
doing it.
The ego steps in going, let me feel for myself and all my suffering. Well, you didn't feel any suffering. You just pasted self-compassion right over it. And so can I allow my experience first? This is the mindfulness. And from the allowing, it will open me naturally, because while you're in there, you're only hanging upside down, aren't you? And what else is there to do then but feel for oneself in my upside downness? Right? But not feel for myself to get out of the upside down. You get what I'm saying? We
Somebody said you had to feel for yourself before you can.
really
When you're
feel it.
making that story up, still making it.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to really feel it, which means I have to know suffering, said the Buddha, on the path to the end of suffering. I cannot get around it. I have to know something about my rage, my anger, my fear, my wanting it some other way, not because I want to just allow it, but I have to really abide it, don't I? That's why I said, just sit there in this heartache, in this bleed, in this tear, in this whatever that is. And we don't like this, do we? That's the upside downness of it all.
But I think, speaking to what Renee said, 'cause I could see myself do that sometimes also, but it's not even that you haven't, because I could rationalize, well, I have felt it, but like for a split second, it's like, oh, it's there. Away. So yes, the feeling for it is there, but just for like that split second instead of like really feeling.
Like
So-
really sitting in it.
But I think the whole reason to go to this for the self-compassion is because you did feel something.
That's right. And right for me, a little pin prick. I didn't feel a completely wide open, smashed heart. It got there though, because like one wave at a time. Can I be with the pinprick and then be with the pinprick? And isn't that somewhat compassionate to go, I don't have to just jump off into the tsunami. I can actually, out of care for myself, say, well, I can open to this little bleed at the bottom today. And then of course I could feel it doing its bigger thing. And can I, well, this is our mindfulness practice, by the way. Without mindfulness, the truth is we cannot cultivate self-compassion. Without the willingness to abide. And that's why that shamatha practice is so critical. Staying. Well, it moved like this, it hurt like this, it tore like this, it broke like this. Staying is first, isn't it? And then the wisdom of it arises. Then I see, oh, it changes. Oh, it's actually bigger. Oh, it goes away when I just open rather than clench or resist or push away or make other, right? Oh, interesting, right? And this is the prajna paramita, the wisdom factor that arises. And it's why we need each other. Isn't it why we need each other? Because without this conversation, we all go about the business of strategizing. We can turn the practice into a strategy. We can turn self-compassion into a strategy. We can, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Now, I think we're live for 15 years because we've tried really hard not to do that. It doesn't mean we haven't done it, but we've tried really hard to, wait a minute, let's not grab that either. Right? And we keep working on it together. And so we all sense the value in it, don't we? Like, I better stay in this. I don't have to like it. I don't have to like her. I don't have to like them. And it's all fine because the practice is still here, which is why I asked us in this year to everybody get back to daily practice. Because without it, this just becomes a very curious and interesting conversation with no potential for ending suffering. Just nice. Oh, nice. Good concept. And Dennis, that's why I responded to the boundless that way. It is true. And you're going to have to go into terror, into confusion, into doubt, into rage, into before you get to that. No shortcuts, no way around. Joko called it the cold couch. The cold couch. You're just going to sit there on the hard, cold, icy couch all by yourself with nobody coming to get you.
But I think that means you gotta have tools you've learned in order to not stay there ever.
Well, nothing stays forever. So that's what you would see is there's nothing is forever anyway. So would you stay open? Yes. Present? Yes. Abiding? Yes. Is it forever? No. Only now.
My example of the cold couch that you and I've talked about it. I get this phone call, telling me that I probably have, bone cancer. And I'm in the cold couch immediately.
Yeah.
And I can remember exactly where I was standing on the porch of our house, and everything sort of had this weird sense of reality to it. I was right there. But I had to go down to get this bone scan. So I'm in my car, so still in the cold couch. In my car, I'm driving along, and my doctor calls me. And he says, I just want to give you some good news. And it was really good news because I had this particular, they call it Gleason score, and it was less than what we thought it was, which was really bad news. So he gives me this good news. And I go from the cold couch.
Boundless space.
Which just speaks to what you just said, which it's always changing, right?
That's right.
We're never in the cold couch forever.
Only the storyline can keep you there.
Right.
And if you're mindful, see, this is where our mindfulness serves us. You see the storyteller telling the story.
Mhm.
It's just going to always be like this. It's never going to get any better. I'm just going to whatever your story is I've tried everything and nothing's going to work. They're never going to love me like I think they should. And then you can see that happening in our mindfulness. And then from our mindfulness, you could only be compassionate towards yourself, going, wow, I got a solid story going. Called I'm never going to get what I deserve. Life is too hard, right? It's unfair. And then you die. And then you go, wait a minute, that's just the storyteller. That's not the truth of the present moment. And it isn't. And it isn't. But mindfulness is required for the seeing, and then compassion waves itself. Because once you really see, there's nothing to do except feel for ourselves and everyone else in this human endeavor.
Says, what are your thoughts on the phrase when you say sometimes, just be yourself?
Well, that's a tricky, that's tricky.
Which self are we
Just
talking
be
about?
yourself. Who is that? Just be yourself. I don't know who that is, truthfully. Just be would be closer, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It would be closer, that yourself puts that pronouncing problem in, I think, a little bit. And just be is that continuously changing, all experiencing. You're going to know everything like I am. Being. It's being is better than selfing. And I think it's dangerous and slightly indulgent. I will tell you honestly. A little indulgent to go, whatever it is for you, that's what it is. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I think anger is anger, but I'm not sure I want to take claim of that as who I am. I also want to accept it as an arising and a vulnerability and an ultimate pain under it. That I could certainly do, but where's the self then? I don't know. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Just be yourself.
Do we get to move nature then?
Yeah. And then there's not so much self. Really.
It's not really our stuff.
No, not really ours at all. Right? And then where is that? And I only know, like, let's just try to hang out with what's right here. That part I can certainly speak to. And from that, I try whatever.
Hey, Diana,
Yes.
I asked that. I don't know if anyone else kind of grew up with that phrase, but when I would have, like, say, anxiety in social situations or something, my parents would say, well, just be yourself. And I can see now that was not particularly helpful because, like you said, especially when you're young, you don't even know what your quote unquote self is.
I don't know today. So
Yeah.
Okay, so you want me to be myself. I'm gonna run screaming from the room with my anxiety. Now, what I suspect they mean, Kelly, is what Greg is saying is some authentic self. But then you have to run screaming from the room, going, well, the one that's here now is terrified. And so just be what? Just be that other self, the one we love,
The one that doesn't have anything.
the one that doesn't have any anxiety is actually, I think, the code on that. Just be your, your real self. Well, my real self is screaming inside. Are you sure? Are you sure? And again, the self is a problem, right? Because it's not true either. We're not just that, right? We're not just the anxious one. We're not just the angry one. It's not true. And just be, well, now I'm running from the room. Right? And I'm screaming and tearing my hair out. So how about that? And I don't think it's true either, right? Not really. We want to be careful about this. It's not true either. And can I, with some stillness, with some abiding, with some compassion, show up for myself? Because that's the way to know, right? Anxious like this, confused like this, angry like this, arising and passing, arising and passing, terrified like this, Greg said, ecstatic like this, arising and passing.
It seems like it changes for me when I can, oh, I'm angry right now. Oh, and oh, that's just my storyline.
Yeah.
It's almost like a third person. You can
That's
see
right.
it,
That's right.
wipe it over there.
Yeah.
And then that's when I have more.
Yes. Yes. I would say the thing I would add to that, Renee, I love what you're saying, is there is the awareness mind who can see it and not be caught in it. It's absolutely real.
The witness.
The witness is real and available, but then you don't have to push anything anywhere. Because by the very seeing, it has dissolved the attachment. It's a dissolved the identity. You couldn't be angry as you are seeing your anger. You couldn't. It dissolves the cord. And so it doesn't mean I don't have residue of it, because I still feel the tight belly. I still feel the thing in my throat. And I might even still have some of those, what we call remnant thoughts, called "you are still an ass" thoughts, but now I still know them as thoughts. And so I'm not really in the storyline anymore. I'm really naming. So the name and describe, name a sensation as a sensation, name a thought as a thought, name an emotion as an emotion,
Come on.
are no longer caught in that experience. You can't be. You cannot be. It's not actually possible. Can I immediately 1 second later poof myself right back into that? Oh, yes, you can. Can I do it again? Name a sensation as a sensation, name a thought as a thought, name an emotion as an emotion. Moment, half a sec, you still are a dope. But clearer and clearer seeing that eventually, right, just becomes somewhat pristine, which is, I already know every thought you're a dope is just me in my own. Mhm.
Yeah, I had a situation recently where I thought I realized later this is what it was, where I was going to try to talk to this other person that an interaction with them had caused me to be very upset and hurt. And so we were going to try to talk to each other and repair the friendship, say.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to prepare for that and realized I just had to look at what I ultimately was angry about. That's what was under this hurt. Yeah. And kind of feel that and then feel like, I'm gonna get caught here.
Mhm.
and then try to figure out what that's about and what my needs, possibly my needs were. But I had to do a lot of practice, breathing practices and so on to help me kind of just not be caught in the pride of it, the feelings of it
Right,
forever.
right.
To just kind of be present, but still understanding that this situation had happened and try to be present when we actually met. So it turned, I had people say to me, so how do you think it's going to go? Or what is it you want to accomplish at the end? And my answer was just, I don't know, we'll go from here. And it was hard to go through because it was shaky, new territory, new way of handling things for me.
Right.
A
Lot of vulnerability there.
in the end, well, because I was trying something new,
Yeah.
a different way of handling. In the end, we're friends and we'll see what happens. And I think that that's the way it is. That's the way it has to be, or
That's
that's a better way to be.
That's
But
right.
more than anything, it is what it is.
That's right.
Right?
That's
I mean,
right.
that's my mantra. Is,
See what
it is what it
happens.
is. And
Yeah.
you don't always have to know what the outcome is going to be.
And you can know it's not always going to go the way you wanted, hoped, or thought it should go. And that's also true. And it doesn't mean it's wrong. However it goes, called they never got it. They never understood.
Well, that is
They
kind of
never
how
said
it went.
sorry. They never, right? No,
That
they
is
didn't.
how it went.
Yeah.
It was a mixed
Nobody
bag.
went, oh, I really
Right.
get you and your feelings. They didn't get anything.
But
They
in
went, you're still a dope and you still shouldn't have done that. But
in
with
the
your
end,
knowing, yeah.
That was just the way it
That's
was gonna
right.
be.
that's right.
But
For right then.
my goal was also to try to see this other person as
Yeah.
just a good being and
That's
that there's values still there between us and just to go with that.
That's right. That is always true. There is a Buddha within. We don't always get the clear evidence because we have a certain way of wanting the evidence, don't we? Like I want the Buddha to shine itself right over it like this. And somebody, right? So the truth is, it is always true and it is always there. And the other truth is, we do not always have evidence for it because there is something closed in us. That's why. Well, I hate that truth and I know it. There's something closed. So if you don't see the Buddha within somebody else, it's not because it's not there.
I just hate it when they're so judgmental.
I see it.
Don't we all? Don't we hate it when people are the way they are?
That sums it up.
Pretty well. I hate that you're human, not like me, because I'm a living Buddha. And again, and so are we all, with vulnerability, with tenderness, with confusion, not around it, not beside it, not transcending it. This scares me because I know there is no way that way, because your beliefs will not hold you. It has to be experienced. You have to practice opening till I can see the Buddha in the person who just said, you're stupid, because of their fear and their pain and their tenderness too. And it doesn't mean every relationship goes perfectly. It doesn't mean they all last. It doesn't mean we get what we want at all, but it doesn't mean it's wrong either. And we have a lot of storyline there. You know, if it was right, it would have lasted forever. Well, no, because nothing does. Right? All of it is in a blink of an eye. We've gone so far over. I so apologize on a topic I think is so important. That's why I think we're there. Thank you all for hanging in with me all this time and our community. We are doing, I want to make sure we say, 2 Tuesdays are St. Andrew's food, and it's Valentine's Day. So I really want us to make our contributions. Again, the food pantry goes way down in January. because everybody brings their December goodies and makes their contributions. Even Feeding San Diego is way low on volunteers. So I would like us to come up with a day to go do that for 2 hours. As a community, I'll get some dates out there, and I want us to show up for St. Andrews in February when everyone else is going to forget, because it's Valentine's Day and it's not the holiday. So send money to EMC at giving, send me money. We will go shopping for you. Do whatever you can do. And I know you can do something. I have confidence in this. Drop food off at Carrie's at 1092 Aloha.
Bring me all kinds of stuff on down.
Yeah, there's all kinds of good stuff to be doing. So thank you all so much. We will be here all next week, Tuesday, Thursday with Greg at 7, and Saturday here in the garden. Yep, I think we're all good for now. March is going to be really, got a whole bunch of people doing traveling in March. We'll figure all that out coming soon. But thank you all. Thank you for being. Blessings to everyone. Lisa, good to see you. Chris, good to see you always. Leslie, good to see you. I hope you're feeling better, Leslie. All right, everyone. Be well.